From Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise this afternoon to speak about what our tax reform and tax relief legislation actually does. And I want to start by welcoming in advance the President of the United States to Pennsylvania. The President is coming to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to talk about the specifics of our tax reform and the effect that it's having. I really wish I could be there with him, but we don't know when we're going to finish up here, as the President knows very, very well. We might be here well into the evening, and I have multiple obligations I've long been committed to in addition to juggling that. So unfortunately, I will not be able to get to Pittsburgh with the President, but I hope to have another opportunity to celebrate this victory for Pennsylvanians and Americans, because that's what it is. You know, Mr. President, when we set out to accomplish the biggest tax reform in at least 31 years, we had two big goals. The first was to make sure that we implemented a direct tax cut for working families, for middle-income families, for the overwhelming majority of families and individuals that we all represent. So that was goal number one. Make sure we cut taxes for the people who are working every day, living paycheck to paycheck, working hard and making America what it is. Item number one. The second thing we wanted to do was to reform this, what was a completely archaic, unbelievably complicated, inefficient, and really terrible business tax code that had become arguably one of the very worst in the world, and one that was systematically discouraging investment in the United States. So those were the two goals: direct tax relief for ordinary Americans and making the business tax code competitive. Mr. President, I am thrilled to be able to say that I believe we achieved both goals. First of all, it's a simple, straightforward, factual matter that we cut taxes on the vast, overwhelming majority of taxpayers, the families and individuals who pay tax. That's just a factual matter. That's easy to confirm. And of course, that has the effect of increasing the take-home pay for anybody who's working. You can increase your take-home pay by either getting a raise from your employer or by paying less taxes on what you earn, or both. And we knew for sure we were cutting taxes. That's going to be a take-home pay increase. But I predicted at the time that we would also be creating an environment where there would be upward pressure on wages, where over time we would start to see people getting bonuses and pay rate increases, wage increases, because we were creating a dynamic in which employers would be competing more and more for workers, and so in effect they would be bidding up the compensation for the workers. So that's what I predicted. And I was confident that that would happen within, some number of months or a year or so. So I have to come down to the floor today, Mr. President, and confess that I was wrong, very wrong, about the timing of that. You see, we didn't have to wait 3 or 6 or 12 months for our constituents, the people we represent, to see the benefits in the form of higher wages. They started happening immediately. I mean, within days. It's actually been stunning. And in the 1 month, it's about 1 month since we passed this sweeping tax reform, hundreds, many hundreds of businesses, those cumulatively employing well over 2 million workers, have announced bonuses, wage increases, expanded benefits, increased contributions to pension accounts. And they have cited the tax reform as the mechanism that has enabled them to do this for their workers. What's so exciting about this, Mr. President, is this is happening before the wave of new investment has even been able to begin. This is happening because companies know that with lower tax rates, they're going to have more free cash flow. And they're going to use some of that to invest in growing their business, but they have already announced that they're using some of that to enhance the compensation for their employees. Let me just give you a few examples. These are just Pennsylvania-related companies, just a handful of the ones that I'm aware of And it's really typical of companies across the country. Comcast, big employer based in Philadelphia, they announced specifically as a result of the tax reform that they would make a $1,000 bonus payment to 100,000 frontline non-executive employees, and they committed to $50 billion of capital expenditure over the next 5 years. How many tens of thousands of jobs is all of that capital expenditure going to support? It's a big number. But that's not all. Out in Pittsburgh, PNC Financial Services, a substantial bank, a large bank in Pittsburgh, announced right after the tax reform that they would pay $1,000 to 47,500 of their employees, and in addition, they would contribute $1,500 to each of their employees who are participating in their pension savings plan. Oh, and they're also raising their base wage. Their minimum wage for employees at PNC goes up to $15 an hour. No federal government edict forcing them to do it. This is what they want to do so that they can attract more and competitive employees. And they've increased their contribution to the foundation, their charitable foundation, $200 million to a foundation that supports early childhood education. That's just PNC. It doesn't end there. Navient. Navient has 900 or so employees in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and they announced that they're making a $1,000 bonus to their non-officer employees. 98% of their employees, not the top brass, those guys don't get it, but everybody else is going to get a $1,000 bonus. Customers Bank, Wyomissing, Berks County, Pennsylvania, they announced that as a result of the tax reform and the tax relief that they're getting, they're going to be able to offer people who have a checking account with them a higher rate on their deposits. Another benefit for consumers, they're going to increase their charitable giving. Next Tier Bank in Butler County in western Pennsylvania, $1,000 bonus to all of their employees. And then, of course, Walmart. We all saw that. I think there are Walmart employees in every state in the union. There certainly are in Pennsylvania. There are over 160 Walmart locations in Pennsylvania. They're giving a bonus of up to $1,000, raising their starting wage, expanding their paid leave policy, and their adoption assistance program for their employees, all in response to the tax relief and reform that they know is going to be good for their business, and they're already decided to make it good for their employees as well. Now that, Mr. President, is just a small handful of the companies that I know of in Pennsylvania who've made public announcements about this. How many more across the country? It's a huge number, and it's growing rapidly, and it's fantastic. Well, I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic when the people that I represent are able to earn more to support their family, get a bigger bonus, get a bonus that they might not otherwise have gotten at all. I think it's great. I know that view is not universally shared. The House Minority Leader, Pelosi, she doesn't think very much of this. In fact, she said, and I quote, "In terms of the bonus that corporate America received versus the crumbs that they are giving to workers to kind of put the schmooze on, it's so pathetic. I think it's insignificant." I have to say, Mr. President, I don't think it's pathetic. I don't think it's insignificant. I think a family that's struggling, a family that's working hard, a family that may be living paycheck to paycheck, as most families do, these are not crumbs. This makes a difference. And for people who wonder, they heard so much from our colleagues on the other side that this is not going to help middle-class families. Any mystery that people may think surrounds this will be resolved very soon because the IRS has already released new withholding guidance. The Treasury has done their evaluation, and they have concluded, as the Joint Tax Committee concluded, that over 90% of all individuals and families filing and paying taxes will see a tax cut. And so they are adjusting the withholding table so that the take-home pay goes up, so that the money that workers pay to Uncle Sam goes down. But honestly, I have to tell you, Mr. President, I'm convinced that the best in all of this is yet to come. The best is yet to come because it's too early for us to have yet benefited from the wave of new capital investment. We've made it more affordable for business to invest in their workers. to invest in their business, to invest here in America instead of somewhere overseas. We've made that more affordable, and so more of it is going to happen. And when it happens, people are going to get the benefits from the jobs that they have to provide those capital goods. Other people are going to benefit from jobs that are necessary to operate that capital equipment. Wages rise because workers become more productive. This is what's in store for us, and this is what's so exciting. It's not just my theorizing on this, Mr. President. Last week, the CEO of PNC, Bill Demchak, was quoted in the Wall Street Journal. He said, and I quote, "For all the investment decisions that companies make, the U.S. just got that much more attractive. It's going to win more than it won before in terms of where people choose to do business activity and to invest." End quote. I couldn't agree more. This is clearly going to be the result. We are allowing American business to compete and to win in a competitive global economy. This is going to increase the supply of capital. It is going to increase the productive capacity of the American economy. It's going to provide better tools for workers when they have that capital that they can work with. That makes them more productive. That enables them to earn higher wages. And with all of the need for more workers that this is going to generate, it's going to continue to put upward pressure on wages, because that's what companies are going to have to do in order to attract and retain the employees that they need. So I will say, Mr. President, I think we are well on our way to seeing the fruits of this reform. I think it is going to be extremely constructive. I am thrilled that our legislation has already begun to have tangible benefits for the people that we represent, and I'm convinced that the best is yet to come. I yield the floor.